Welcome back to another FPL video. This will be the best wildcard team for Gameweek 17, and all of the videos for Gameweek 17 are recorded late in the week. I haven't had much time recently, but now, in the next day or so, the plan is to do the transfer tips, the best wildcard team here, the team selection, and the deadline stream. So it could be 2 double uploads on the Thursday and the Friday, or even a triple upload on Thursday and the deadline stream on Friday. So be sure to smash the like button. If this video gets to over 200 likes, then you're going to get all the other content that I just mentioned and much more for UCL Fantasy from February onwards, and of course for FPL for the entire season. But let's get straight into this video talking about the best 50-man squad on the wildcard. Since Martin Dubravka's come into the team, Newcastle haven't won a single game in all competitions, and not only that, they've conceded a bucketload of goals, 3 to Everton, 4 to Tottenham, and 2 to AC Milan, as Newcastle crashed out of the Champions League, bottom of the group. So things aren't looking rosy there for Dubravka and Newcastle, and it has been reported that Dubravka has been nursing a shoulder injury since September, and Newcastle are looking for a replacement, or at least an upgrade, in January, whilst Nick Pope is out for pretty much the entire season up until April or May is what's currently estimated. But Dubravka still remains here as a budget option. You can also go for Areola or even Turner, who came back into the side in Gameweek 16 in a 1-1 draw against Wolves. But the second goalkeeper I'm going for, or technically the first, the main goalkeeper for you, is Bernd Leno, who is currently the highest scoring goalkeeper in the game with 66 FPL points, 4 clear of Alisson Becker. And I'd probably go for Leno considering Fulham's form. They've won 2 games in a row 5-0, and because of that, you might want to go for their attackers. But I would urge a bit of caution there, and I'd rather go for the best Fulham asset, which in my opinion is Bernd Leno. He's the most consistent. He can get saves and bonus points, and the occasional clean sheet with those long-term fixtures. Now, I still like David Raya, but for the next 2 game weeks, I wouldn't want to double up on the Arsenal defence. Beyond that, so looking ahead to Gameweek 19 onwards, I'd be well on board to going for Raya once again in the best wildcard team videos. But for now, I'm going for Dubravka and Bernd Leno. Despite Arsenal struggling recently, defensively, conceding to PSV Eindhoven with a rotated team, Saliba and Gabriel were the only first teamers, so to speak, to start that game. Then you've got the goal conceded to Wolves, which was a gift by Zinchenko, 2 goals gifted to Luton Town by David Raya, and then, of course, you've got the Aston Villa loss 1-0. Arsenal played very well in that match, but that one moment where they switched off defensively, Aston Villa carved them open with a great team goal. So Arsenal defenders haven't been that great, but I still think Saliba long-term is one of the best FPL defenders for sure. I was probably wrong in terms of saying he's the best defender up until the new year, but I still think he's worth including in the best wildcard team. With Zinchenko, he's better for bonus points and assists, but my problem with Zinchenko is rotation, which we saw already against Luton Town, and he's also very injury prone. So I think Saliba is your best bet to enter the Arsenal defence, even over David Raya, who's still pretty good. Gabriel, of course, is a solid option, but he could get the odd benching as we've seen so far this season. But let's now head over to the other defenders in this team, and I have changed my mind on this particular individual. He's only behind Kieran Trippier for FPL points amongst defenders, and that's Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think it's worth upgrading Tsimikas to Trent. A lot of us will have 2 or 3 Liverpool players, and in some cases, of course, with the triple up, you would have to get rid of Tsimikas and go directly to Trent, but you might not have the funds to do so. But if you can find a way, I think it's certainly worth it. He even got 2 bonus points, despite the fact that he got no goals, no assists, and no clean sheet against Crystal Palace because of the amount of chances he creates, the passes. He is integral to Liverpool's attack. He's always going to be a bit of a suspect defender, but there's no denying what he can bring to Liverpool going forward. So I think Trent is worth the money, and with Trippier suspended, you can make that switch as well. And Trippier also has an injury problem, which could be problematic in the future as well. Now, going into the third defender, I've been talking about him for quite some time now. He's a cheap option, and that is Mykolenko, who has now gone up to 4.6 million, and he is offering terrific value. Everton, since that 10-point deduction, lost 3-0 to Man United, but since then, 3 wins in a row, and they're making great progress. Who knows where they would be if they didn't get that deduction, because they are one of the best teams in the Premier League right now, and could even finish top half if they keep up this rate. I think there will be a drop-off, but there's no denying that Mykolenko is a good FPL option. He can get some attacking returns, some bonus points, and most importantly, clean sheets. And Everton have been pretty solid defensively in the last couple of game weeks. Now, the fourth defender isn't someone I'm particularly a big fan of. I also don't think this team is particularly great defensively, but back-to-back clean sheets against the 2 best teams in the league, arguably, in Manchester City and Arsenal. And I'm going for Pau Torres from Aston Villa, and they've got some good fixtures coming up, and I think he's a very good way of navigating blank Gameweek 18. So that's why I've gone for Pau Torres. If you have Matty Cash and you want a similar price defender, then I think Pau Torres makes complete sense. But the last defender is someone I've banged on about for weeks and weeks and weeks, and that's going to be Pedro Porro. I think he's a fantastic option, despite the fact that Spurs defensively are arguably the weakest of the 5 teams covered in this defensive line, and even compared to Newcastle and Fulham from the goalkeepers. But what Pedro Porro offers is the attacking threat, so many crosses into the box, so many chances created. He's on set pieces, including corners and free kicks, and he gets so many assists. That's 5 for the season already. He's got good underlying numbers, which suggests that it's sustainable. So I think Pedro Porro is almost essential, despite the fact that Spurs aren't good defensively. Many people in the last couple of weeks are talking about selling Saka to Son, and I think it could pay off over the next 3 or 4 game weeks, but my advice will be to keep Saka and find another way to bring Heung-min Son in. I think Saka is still a great long-term option, and even in these difficult fixtures like Brighton and Liverpool, I still think Saka can get some attacking returns. Arsenal might drop some points, concede a few goals in the process, but they should still offer some attacking threat going forward, especially against Brighton. So I think Saka is certainly worth it, and if you want to, you could bench him against Liverpool. Saka is one of those players I don't like to bench. The same goes for Watkins, Heung-min Son, and of course the obvious ones in Salah and Haaland. But his consistency certainly has to be admired, and he's got good underlying stats actually compared to Heung-min Son, who a lot of people are very keen on. And if you actually compare the underlying numbers like XG, big chances created, big chances, they're actually quite similar, and Saka does lead in a lot of these metrics. So I think Saka is certainly worth considering. If you have him, he's an easy hold, as we'll discuss in the transfer tips video if this video gets to over 200 likes. Now, the next midfielder is going to be unanimous. We're all going to agree on this, and that's Mohamed Salah. The only downside to having the Egyptian is the fact that in Gameweek 21, he will be off to the African Cup of Nations, and that's something you have to be very careful about when building your wildcard team or making free transfers. So with Salah and Son, they're 2 of the best midfielders in the game, but they also will be absent between Gameweek 21 and roughly up to Gameweek 25. It could be a bit earlier, depending on when their respective countries are eliminated from the African Cup of Nations and the Asian Cup. The third midfielder is still Cole Palmer. He has dropped off a little bit recently, and he does rely a lot on penalties, but for his price, you can't go wrong. And with the injury doubt to Gordon, I think Palmer is probably the better option of the 2 right now, and he has better fixtures. But in terms of Gordon, he was going to be in this best wildcard team. I will provide an update, which Eddie Howe talked about yesterday. He says that Gordon was forced off because of a tight hamstring against AC Milan, and he also talked about Trippier, who has an unspecified injury. So let's wait and see what information we get over the next day or so. And unfortunately, Gordon isn't in this team as a result. He could be available for Gameweek 17, but my current thinking and gut feeling is that he'll be benched. And then you've got Luton Town away, which isn't the easiest of fixtures actually when you look at it. But Gordon is still a good option long term. You could hold him if you have the squad depth, but on a wild card, I would go elsewhere. And the 4th midfielder I'm going to go to will be a very simple one, and that's going to be Jarrod Bowen, who is currently in my own team. And I think he's also a very good way to upgrade to Son for a couple of weeks and then go back to Jarrod Bowen. But even these difficult games coming up like Arsenal and Man United, why can't Bowen do well in those games? And West Ham have actually done pretty decent against certain big teams like Tottenham recently. They did get battered by Fulham 5-0. I don't think anyone expected that. But Bowen is still a good FPL asset, and I would rate him above Ward-Prowse and Kudus. So the 4th midfielder we're going to go for here is going to be one of the best midfielders and assets in the game, and that's Heung-min Son. He might blank a lot, but in those individual games, he goes absolutely ballistic, and he produces plenty of double-digit returns. You saw it against Newcastle, 17 points, his second biggest haul of the season, and that's what I like about Heung-min Son, and that's the reason why he is only second behind Salah for points amongst midfielders in FPL. So I'm very happy with this midfield 5. The only issues really are Salah and Son going off to their respective international competitions in Gameweek 21, but for the next 4 game weeks or so, they're going to do a great job, and the same goes for the rest of the midfield. I have gone for a budget option here, and we do have money in the bank, so you could possibly go to a Raul Jimenez or Joao Pedro, or a forward that you have more confidence in. And I don't mind having 8 attackers with this fixture period coming up in December, where you have such a quick turnaround, and having more nailed on players that you trust to come off the bench, and it might give you some benching headaches and all of that, but having that squad depth can be crucial in this Christmas period. So you can go to a Raul Jimenez, Joao Pedro, or any other forward of of your choice, but I'm going for Semenyo as the third option, and he's going to really sit on your bench most weeks. He plays Luton Town at home this week, which could be a good fixture there at home, and Bournemouth are in great form, and really we're going to focus on the other two forwards. That's the most important thing, and who I'm going for includes his fellow partner in crime, Solanke, who has been absolutely terrific this season with 8 goals and 1 assist. Last season he got quite a lot of assists and not many goals, but he's very good for the bonus points, and Bournemouth right now are one of the informed teams in the league. They won 3-0 away to Manchester United. Solanke scored, also hit the post, and Bournemouth could have scored 4 or 5. They were really good in that game, and I think Solanke is a great option at that price now. I'm really, warming up to him. Before I was kind of saying, he's a good option for his price and below, but I'd rather go for Darwin, Watkins, Haaland, etc. But now, apart from Watkins and Haaland, I think Solanke is the third best forward in the game. But the last striker we're going to go to is Ollie Watkins, and I still think Darwin could be pretty good in fixtures like Gameweek 17 against Man United, but in a wildcard team, I would go for Watkins, Solanke and Semenyo. No Erling Haaland, who could be available this weekend. Pep Guardiola said he'll be back on Thursday, and he also will provide more updates by his press conference, which will probably be released by the time this video is published, so we can also keep each other updated in the comments section. And I think with Haaland, you bring him back around Gameweek 19 after the blank in Gameweek 18, and he could go ballistic in Gameweek 17 against Crystal Palace. There's no denying that. He's a great captaincy option if he's available, but I would go for this front three on the wild card. And as I said, if you want to spend the extra money, and it might be an issue of course with bringing Haaland back in, but if you want to do that, then you have plenty of forwards to go to upgrade Semenyo to a more reliable striker, and you can be very happy with this 50-man wildcard squad. Let's now head over to FPL.team, talk about the starting 11, the captaincy, and also some alternatives as we go along. Despite Newcastle's struggles and Fulham's great form, I would favour Dubravka over Leno, as the game is at St James's Park, and I think Newcastle will be very aggravated and furious with the results recently. It's been a disastrous week for them in the Premier League and the Champions League. I think they will bounce back, and I would still back them to win against Fulham. So I'm going for Dubravka over Leno in that head-to-head, and also a back three of Pedro Porro, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mykolenko, all with pretty good fixtures. Mykolenko and Pedro Porro are away, and I'm not so sure about clean sheets, especially for Pedro Porro, but still a pretty good defensive line nonetheless. The midfield 5 is Salah, Palmer, Saka, Bowen and Heung-min Son, and the front 2 is Watkins and Solanke, both with pretty good fixtures, especially in Solanke's case. The bench is Leno, Saliba, Semenyo and Pau Torres, but you could even put Pau Torres above Saliba in the pecking order. If you want to change that, let me know down in the comment section below, because I think there is a valid case to do so. In terms of the captaincy, I would favour Salah or Son this week, and for those of you with Haaland, I'd also put him in the equation if he's fit, but I wouldn't consider anyone else really. Even Bowen at home to Wolves, Saka against Brighton, they're pretty good options. Even Solanke at home to Luton, Watkins is always a decent shout, but I think Salah and Son are the 2 best captaincy options in Gameweek 17, and I would favour Salah slightly more than Son. Man United are in terrible form as well, losing 3-0 to Bournemouth and 1-0 to Bayern Munich, crashing out bottom of the group. And not only that, they have so many injury problems, and they got even more issues after that Bayern Munich game, including Harry Maguire. So there's a lot of players missing. Bruno Fernandes is suspended. And either way, a lot of us would expect Liverpool to win quite comprehensively. So Salah or Son for the captaincy. You can also leave your thoughts there. I'll probably put a poll out on my channel. So by subscribing, you can see all the posts I put, including polls, updates, and much more. So keep you informed, and it'll also give you an idea of what the community wants and what they prefer, and that can help you with your decision making. In terms of some alternatives in each position, I think David Raya or Alisson would be the best in goal. And in terms of defenders, it's a bit trickier here actually, because there's a lot of defenders maybe with good long-term fixtures, but they're currently injured or suspended right now, or their immediate fixtures aren't so great. So there's always going to be a bit of a problem. I think the defenders is quite difficult to name some alternatives. I think Tsimikas could be one, maybe a Fulham defender like Robinson, but with Leno here already, I wouldn't go for that defensive double up. I think that's far too much. I think Kieran Trippier will be a great option once he comes back from injury and suspension. So let's wait and see when that's going to be, but Trippier is always going to be a consideration. You can play the fixtures and go for a Chelsea defender or Robert Sanchez in goal, so Colwell would be the best of a relatively bad bunch, to be honest. In terms of midfielders, I think it's a bit tricky as well, because Mbumo, who I really liked until Gameweek 21, is injured. So I think with midfielders, I'd probably consider the likes of Foden, but he also blanks in Gameweek 18. As for forward alternatives, I still think Darwin Núñez, Haaland of course has to be considered, and I've got 1.1 million in the bank with this 50-man squad, so you have to also think about how you're going to get back to Haaland in Gameweek 19 onwards. And what you could do is downgrade Son, because a couple of weeks later he goes off to the Asian Cup anyway, so Son could be a 2-game-week punt, and then you downgrade him to a Gordon if he's available, and then use those funds to upgrade Solanke to Erling Haaland, to name one particular example. You could also upgrade Ollie Watkins if you don't have the funds for the other upgrade. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to the 200 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards 22,000 subscribers and beyond. We're very close to that goal. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, the FPL League, and also Draft. And I'd highly encourage you to check all of them out. I wish you all the best of luck for Gameweek 17 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.